Alright, hey guys, this is the second video. This is going to be for coon trapping. All the equipment you need for trapping raccoons, whether it be on a water line or dry land or a mix of both. So if I was going out tomorrow and trap, this is the stuff I'd have with me for coon trapping. If you're going to water trap or dry land trap raccoons, you're always going to want to have an animal catcher. You can buy them or make them. The good thing about making them is you can make them all different sizes that you want, but these are always good to have if you accidentally catch a neighbor's cat or dog, or an unwanted target animal that you didn't, say if you caught a possum, you wanted to let it go, then you can use this to let them go with. Another important tool if you're going to water trap is some kind of digging tool to make pocket sets. You can use a hand trowel. I'd recommend just a little garden trowel like this for a beginner. They're not very expensive. You might already have one at the house. But they do take a little more effort, but if you're not setting a lot of traps, like a beginner, you're not going to have a lot of traps out, so garden trowel, hand trowel would work really good. Now, if you have one or already, or you can go buy one, but if they're not really necessary, is a spade. They do work a little better than a hand trowel, but you don't really need one. It's not necessary if you're just a beginner. They work good, better on long lines. But if you're interested in getting into long lining, I'd recommend something a little bigger. They do make trowels or like the size of this, but with just a longer handle. Those work good, but I like to use spade. Another tool is an axe or hatchet. You might need to cut a small log to make for a drag if you can't put a stake in the ground. And if you're going to use some kind of drag, then wire is always good. I always have wire with me on a coon line. I very rarely use any kind of metal stakes on my coon line. I always either use cable and go wrap it around a tree that way, or use wire. If you're a beginner, I just recommend going out and getting a roll of wire. I know it's pretty cheap. A roll like this is like $30, but this, if you're just a beginner, this will last you several seasons. And some of the traps, I'm only going to have 2 traps on the water line. The one good trap I recommend is a Duke 1.5. They're just a good all-around trap. They're less than $7. So they're really good for the line. I always have them. Another trap I recommend is a dog proof. These you can set them on land or down by the water. They are a little bit more expensive. They're almost twice as much as a 1.5, but if you can afford them, then I'd recommend them. If you're going to do a lot of water trapping and you don't really feel like shooting the animal to dispatch them, then you can use drowner lines. If the water's deep enough, that'll allow you to drown them. So you're going to either want to buy or make drowner lines. Cable, it's not that expensive. You can make quite a few drowner lines just on 100 foot of cable, or even a 500 foot roll. But there are supplies that you can buy to make your own drowner lines. But if you're going to use it, a drowner line, then you're going to have to use some kind of stakes, whether it be rebar stakes or like a wood stake. But you do want to make sure that the cable is good and secure. If the water is too deep and you don't have waders, then you're going to want to use sandbags instead of using a stake out in the water. Instead of, like I said in the video before, instead of carrying weights in with you, just carry sandbags and fill them up with rocks when you get there, and they work just as good. Then you just wire the bag to the end of your drowner line and throw it out in the water, and that's good. So if you're gonna now go into like dry land, if you're gonna mix in dry land with water trapping, or if you're just gonna do dry land and not water trap, then some of the tools you'll need is some kind of hammer with a digging tool. You can either make them or buy them, but this is one thing you're gonna need, is some kind of tool to dig a trap bed with. But you don't always have to have a hammer. If the ground is soft enough, you can just use a hand trowel to dig a trap bed with. But if you do dry land trap, you're going to need some kind of stakes. But you can wire or use cable to attach to a tree, but if you're on a trail and there's no trees close by, then you're going to need a rebar stake. Or if you have the money, you can buy cable stakes. You can check them out. They just look like this. I made a video so you can check that out. But they aren't really a whole lot expensive. But if you're just a beginner, I'd just go with the rebar stakes. They're easy to put it in the ground, easy to take out. Another tool, if you're going to trap on land for raccoons, you're going to need a sifter. Just to sift a little bit of dirt in a trap bed. Personally, I don't bed my traps like all that good because I don't think it's necessary. But you do want a sifter. Just sift a little bit of dirt in the bed to set your trap in, and then all I do is put some grass and leaves over the trap, and that's it. And you're always going to want some kind of gloves. If you're going to be dry land, you can use rubber gloves, but I prefer leather gloves. It does keep your scent down, but scent doesn't really matter when it comes to coon trapping. But water trapping, you're going to want some kind of waterproof gloves to keep your hands warm in the cold water. Another trap that I recommend, but it's not really necessary if you're just a beginner, is a conibear. You do have to watch your state regulations on certain sizes and if they are legal, so don't go out and buy conibears before. You do want to check the regulations before you go out and buy them. But you can use conibears in bucket sets on dry land, or set the conibear on a trail that the raccoons use. But as a beginner, I wouldn't really go with the conibears, but maybe after a year or so, after using the leg hold, like the 1.5 for the dog proofs, then kind of mix in a couple conibears with your other sets. Another kind of accessory you don't have, I just use them because it saves me time, so I don't have to dig pocket sets. It's just a piece of PVC pipe. Doesn't have to, it can be all different sizes. You can cut it however long you want, and then I wire a big nail to the end so I can stick it in the bank instead of digging a pocket hole. Then you just put your bait down in here. Like I said, it's not necessary, it's just what I like to use. But digging a old just general pocket set is the best for raccoon. But if you're going to trap, you're going to get supplies, and you're going to need something to carry your traps in. Some kind of tote bag, something that has some kind of pockets in it works good, so you can put your lure and baits in it as well. Or if you want something a little bigger, then go with a trapping basket. They are a little bit expensive, but in the end run, they're like a one-time buy. They do save you a lot of time from just carrying a bag or just all the gear in your hands. But this is all the gear I use if I was going to go out and on a line tomorrow and trap. As far as bait and lure, basic bait to use for raccoons is dog or cat food, marshmallows, tuna, mackerel, sardines, anything like that works good. For lure, I would go with, I've had good luck with Hawbaker's lure, but fish oil works really good. So I'd go with fish oil and some kind of lure, and then all the bait you can buy at like Walmart, like your marshmallows, dog food, cat food, and mackerel and tuna. So this is all the stuff I use on a coon line. So hopefully it helps you out, give you an idea what you need to get if you're going to get into trapping. You don't need a lot of traps to get started. Maybe 2 or 3 1.5s, 2 or 3 dog proofs, and if you do get conibears, get a couple of them. I wouldn't go any lower than a 155 for coon, and no bigger than a 220. But you do have to check the regulations of your state. But this is what I use, so I hope